Jade Cargill surrounded. 3 stars target Jade. Jade's Smackdown nightmare. Rhea, Charlotte and Alexa strike. Jade faces a 3-on-1 assault. Have you ever wondered what happens when the most dominant woman in WWE suddenly finds herself outnumbered? And what if the real story wasn't the attack itself, but the reason 3 of the biggest stars on SmackDown seemed determined to send one very specific message? Because what happened to Jade Cargill on SmackDown wasn't just another confrontation. It wasn't just another wrestling segment designed to fill a few minutes of television. No, this felt different. This felt personal. This felt like the kind of moment that could completely change the direction of the women's division. And honestly, if you're Jade Cargill, this might have been the first time in a very long time that you looked around and realized the target on your back had become impossible to ignore. Now, before we dive into everything that happened, hit that like button if you've been following Jade Cargill's WWE journey, because after this SmackDown, things may never be the same again. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel because there is a lot to unpack here. Let's talk about the atmosphere first. One of the things that made this entire segment so interesting wasn't just who showed up. It was the feeling that something was about to happen long before it actually happened. Fans could sense it. You know that weird feeling when a horror movie gets really quiet and everyone knows the jump scare is coming? Yeah, it was kind of like that. Jade Cargill entered with the confidence we've come to expect from her. Why wouldn't she? Ever since arriving in WWE, she's carried herself like someone who expects greatness. She walks with purpose. She talks with confidence. She carries herself like a star. And to be fair, she's backed it up. But confidence can become isolation. That's the funny thing about being at the top. Everybody wants your spot. Everybody wants your attention. Everybody wants the opportunity to be the person who knocks you down. And on this particular night, it felt like 3 women had reached exactly the same conclusion. The first major sign of trouble arrived when Rhea Ripley entered the picture. Now let's be honest for a second. Whenever Rhea Ripley appears, the mood changes instantly. It's almost unfair. The arena reacts differently. The crowd sounds different. Even the people standing across the ring suddenly start reconsidering some of their life choices. Rhea carries that kind of presence. And as she stared down Jade Cargill, fans immediately realized they were looking at a dream confrontation. 2 physical powerhouses. 2 dominant forces. 2 competitors who aren't used to backing down from anybody. The tension was incredible. But then things became even more interesting. Because Charlotte Flair wasn't far behind. And that's where the situation started feeling dangerous. You can say whatever you want about Charlotte Flair, but one thing remains true. She always finds herself involved when the conversation shifts toward championship opportunities, division leadership, and major moments. Somehow, she always ends up standing right in the middle of the storm. So now Jade wasn't just dealing with Rhea Ripley. Now she was staring at Charlotte Flair too. 2 massive threats. 2 huge personalities. 2 women capable of changing the entire landscape of WWE whenever they decide to make their presence felt. And if you're keeping score at home, that's already a bad day. But SmackDown wasn't finished. Not even close. Because just when it looked like things couldn't become more complicated, Alexa Bliss entered the situation. And that's when fans really started asking questions. Why Alexa? Why now? What exactly was happening here? Because Alexa Bliss brings something different to every confrontation. She's unpredictable. She's calculating. She's the type of person who can smile while planning 3 moves ahead. Adding Alexa to the mix transformed the entire segment from a simple face-off into something much bigger. Suddenly Jade Cargill wasn't standing across from one rival. She wasn't standing across from 2 rivals. She was standing across from 3 of the most recognizable women in WWE. And for the first time in a long time, the numbers game was completely against her. Now here's where things become fascinating. Think about the personalities involved. Rhea Ripley isn't Charlotte Flair. Charlotte Flair isn't Alexa Bliss. Alexa Bliss isn't Rhea Ripley. These women don't approach situations the same way. They don't think the same way. They don't fight the same way. Yet somehow they found themselves focused on the exact same target. Jade Cargill. That alone should tell you how significant Jade has become. Sometimes the greatest compliment in wrestling isn't applause. Sometimes it's having multiple top stars decide you're the biggest threat in the room. And that's exactly what this felt like. The confrontation continued building. The tension grew. The crowd grew louder. Fans knew they were watching something important. The question wasn't whether chaos would happen. The question was when. And when things finally exploded, the visual was unforgettable. Jade Cargill surrounded. 3 elite competitors closing in. The odds stacked against her. The situation looking worse by the second. It was the kind of image WWE loves because it instantly creates drama. Can Jade survive? Will somebody help her? Can she fight them all off? Or is this the beginning of a much larger problem? And here's something else worth discussing. What if this wasn't really about attacking Jade? What if this was about sending a message? Because wrestling history is filled with moments where a confrontation wasn't meant to destroy someone immediately. It was meant to create doubt. To create pressure. To force someone into making mistakes. And if that was the goal, mission accomplished. Because after Smackdown ended, fans weren't talking about victories or losses. They were talking about possibilities. Could this lead to a triple threat situation? Could this lead to a fatal 4-way showdown? Could alliances form? Could betrayals happen? Could one of these women secretly be manipulating the others? Honestly, in WWE, stranger things have happened. We've seen friendships collapse in a single night. We've seen enemies become allies. We've seen people spend months plotting revenge over things that happened years earlier. So anything is possible. And that's exactly why this segment worked. It created questions. Lots of questions. The best wrestling stories don't immediately provide answers. They give fans something to debate. Something to argue about. Something to discuss online for days. Judging by the reactions, that's exactly what happened here. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Rhea Ripley is the biggest threat to Jade Cargill? Do you think Charlotte Flair has her own agenda? Or do you think Alexa Bliss is secretly the most dangerous person involved in this entire situation? Drop your predictions in the comments because I'm genuinely curious what everyone thinks. One thing seems clear though. Jade Cargill